It's Friday, the 3rd of June. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blanco Lirio channel, and I was hoping to bring you just a nice, mellow Oroville Reservoir update. We were up there just yesterday with a young intern, summer intern, Kellen, and was going to report on you that the Oroville Reservoir is at 772 feet and is already down from a high of 776 feet, as most of the snow has already melted in the Sierra Nevada mountains. But instead, this happened within moments of us leaving the Oroville airport after practicing some touch and goes in the mighty Luscombe. A 1969 Beech 19A Musketeer November 7641 Romeo, apparently suffering some sort of an engine problem on takeoff, lost control of the aircraft in what appears to be a classic departure stall spin accident while taking off from runway 13 at Oroville about 12:30 yesterday afternoon. 2 people on board, both were instructors. Very little preliminary information here so far on Catherine's report other than the aircraft, tail number, location, and time of the accident. There were no survivors. The Beech Musketeer is a 4-seat trainer-type aircraft produced by Beechcraft in the late 60s and early 70s and features a 150 horsepower Lycoming 4-cylinder engine and a fixed-pitch propeller. Because of the relative low power of that engine with this airframe, this aircraft is generally used as a 2-seat aircraft, even though there are 4 seats available. Operating with just 2 pilots on board, this aircraft would have been well within its center of gravity limits. The Oroville Airport is located just southwest of Oroville Reservoir and is a great place to go training. It's an uncontrolled airport, and it's not as busy as some of the other local airports in the area. The winds yesterday were out of the south. When we were there around 11:30 or so, we were using runway 20 and accepting a little bit of a left crosswind as Kellen was getting some crosswind landing practice in the Luscombe with a left-hand pattern. This accident aircraft departed on runway 13, the shorter of the 2 runways, accepting a little bit of a right crosswind, or perhaps the winds were more favoring runway 13 at that time of the accident, as they were a little bit variable out of the south. And it appears that this aircraft ended up over here just west of the runway 31 numbers with the wings parallel to the runway, which indicates to me about a 3/4 of a turn spin before impacting the ground. And based on experience witnessing these things firsthand, I've watched 3 of these in person. I did not see this accident. However, there is apparently going to be video evidence of this accident. More on that in a minute. But in order to get a 3/4 turn of a spin, that would be about 200 feet or so of altitude will produce that much of a spin, which would seem to me to indicate a stall spin accident while on departure. Now, the scuttlebutt from the ground in Oroville and all this needs to be verified. The ownership of this aircraft, the person that this aircraft is registered to, was not involved in this accident. They have not yet released, as the time of this editing this video, they have not yet released the names of the victims. This particular Musketeer was in a partnership agreement for many years here at the Oroville Airport. And partnership agreements in airplanes is a great way to help defray the costs of ownership. And this aircraft apparently had about 4 different partners involved in the aircraft. But it was not being flown very much. There is reports that they were experiencing or having troubles or trying to troubleshoot some kind of a engine problem. Now, let's go back and do a little from personal experience and human factors, 2 instructors on board. If I remember correctly, back in my Air Force days as an instructor pilot, whenever we did our risk assessment with 2 instructors on board, 2 instructors raised the risk assessment value up highly. Most of you know from experience, when you get 2 instructors on board, sometimes your chances for a problem are increased. Why? Because with 2 instructors, you may very likely become complacent. Also, too, with the two instructors, they apparently, and this will all have to come out in the report here as the FAA and NTSB research what was going on there with everybody at the airport, but apparently they decided to go ahead and fly this airplane, troubleshoot this engine, and have a friend video the takeoff to take that data back to the mechanic to troubleshoot the engine. Well, you don't want to troubleshoot a single engine airplane in the air, airplane engine in the air. You get it sorted out on the ground. But then again, back to this two instructors thing, maybe they felt that they were proficient enough to handle any kind of problem with the engine at Oroville. Besides, there's plenty of runway at Oroville and plenty of room and plenty of flat places to put the airplane in the event of an engine failure. Now, the two pilots on board, the two instructors on board, the word on the streets is one of the instructor pilots was buying into or back into the partnership of this airplane, but had not flown this airplane in well over a decade, and the other instructor on board was brought on board to help get this pilot checked out in the aircraft. So all of this will have to be verified by the FAA and the NTSB as they interview everybody involved with the accident. But it appears that there was some sort of an engine problem and there was a loss of control of the aircraft. We're not getting the word out about a defined minimum maneuvering speed, a plan. What are you going to do with an engine failure on takeoff? Remember, if you push that aircraft over into a zero-G condition, you cannot stall that aircraft. You need to get and obtain a minimum flying speed in order to maneuver the aircraft after an engine failure after takeoff. You need to pitch over to a setting that will allow you to maintain control of the aircraft and not stall and spin the aircraft in. Just last spring, I was talking about this in the Mighty Luscombe, engine failure on takeoff. Let's do a quick review.
Okay, AQP stuff they don't teach you on the FAA written or private pilot's license. Engine failure on takeoff. Define mid-maneuvering airspeed. You can do the math and come up with a good number. I like to use 65, about 65 miles an hour in this particular aircraft. But to me, it's more of a pitch attitude. I want that nose down. You get climbing up here, and you suffer some sort of an engine failure. Get that nose down right away. Look at that, 0G. You cannot stall an airplane at 0G. Okay, there's 65. There's my defined mid-maneuvering airspeed. I can now maneuver. I can turn this thing every which way, but maintain that 65. Maintain it. Maintain it. Maintain that 65 indicated. I'm not recommending a turn back to the runways per se. I'm just saying maintain that airspeed and fly this thing right into the crash. Then you get down there into a spot in between the trees, and then you can work on your everything that you learned here on slow flight and stalls. And just get it as slow as you can now that you've got it maneuvered into whatever position you got, and then blam, stall it into the trees. What, 40 miles an hour? You'll probably survive.
Now, yesterday before we started our landings in the Luscombe, I was showing Kellen some slow flight, or having Kellen do some slow flight practice in the Luscombe, and the importance of keeping your turns coordinated while flying slow. About 40 miles per hour indicated. Next, we had him try what's more commonly called a falling leaf maneuver, or stalling the aircraft and maintaining wings level with the rudder, not the ailerons. Flying it in the stall with the rudders only. Good. Left rudder, right rudder, left rudder, good. Flying with the rudders in the stall. Let it, yeah, and it's just gonna settle down like that. 700 feet per minute. You're in the stall, and she's flying. She's perfectly rigged where the wing stalls and the tail stalls. She'll just settle right down. Okay, recover. Good. This sort of slow-flying practice, stalls and falls, needs to continue to be emphasized in all phases of general aviation pilot training. Now let's go turn to an old friend of mine to add a little bit more to this teachable moment. Do you guys remember Wayne Hanley of the Raven Air Show fame? And if you're a Central Valley Duster pilot, of course you know Wayne. And he's the guy that taught me about you can't stall an airplane at 0 Gs. You can't stall a wing at 0 G. He's going to talk about some uncoordinated turns and the kind of stall and spin characteristics that you will get out of each one. A slipping turn versus a skidding turn. Which way will the aircraft roll?
Development of some bad habits, and you've got a bad habit working with you, and you get a surprise such as an engine failure, possibly an in-flight sulfur fire, or you hit the wake from another airplane you're working with, and you can get a real nasty surprise. Let's take a look at a couple of uncoordinated turns where I intentionally take the airplane past the maximum angle of attack. I feel it's imperative that you accurately anticipate the control response if you do go outside the envelope.
I will establish a steep turn to the left. I will use top rudder to slip the airplane. And when the airplane stalls, which way will it roll? We will do a skidding turn to the right. Which wing will stall first? Which way will we roll?
If you had to think twice about which way the aircraft was going to roll in each one of those stalls, I'd like to take you along for the rest of the ride.
And when the airplane stalls, which way will it roll? Over the top, and down we go.
That's left aileron, right rudder.
Which wing will stall first? Which way will we roll?
This is left rudder, skidding it around. Correction, right rudder.
Right wing stalls. We roll to the right. Takes left rudder, our top rudder. Relax the back stick, and we're in good shape again.
Let's use this model to illustrate the dynamics of a basic turn. Turning to the left, if we slip the airplane, the ball's going to go out to the left. The right wing is retreated, decreasing the airflow or the relative wind over the wing. We've had to cross control. We have right rudder, now we use left stick, lowering our right aileron, which in effect increases our angle of attack. This wing will stall first. We're going to roll over the top and down we go. Let's come back now to the left turn and we skid the airplane. Ball goes out to the right. Left wing retreats, decreasing the relative wind flowing over the left wing. We have to cross control. We're using left rudder, right stick. Now we have lowered our left aileron, effectively increasing the angle of attack. So this wing, the inboard wing, will stall. In a skid, the airplane's going to snap underneath, and down we go. Okay. In the flight demonstrations you've just seen, I had altitude. I intentionally stalled the airplane, correctly anticipating which way the airplane would roll, and came in immediately with the correct control inputs. Now, if you're down in a working environment at turn altitude, and you stall this airplane, and do not come in immediately with the correct response, the airplane will continue to roll and could very well impact the ground. You may think that standing on the bottom rudder will give you the tightest turn. Wrong. If you're standing on a rudder, you're compensating with stick. So what do you have? Aileron down, aileron up, rudder off to the side. Very inefficient way to fly an airplane. Very dangerous way to fly the airplane. If you stall in this situation, it's going to go underneath. You've got to catch it with opposite rudder immediately. The instinctive thing to do is pick up that wing with the stick. When it drops, you want to pick it up. Don't do that. That lowers your aileron, increases in the angle of attack on this wing, making it virtually impossible to roll the airplane back up. It's the misuse of rudder, not the stall, that causes the spin. If I was making a coordinated turn and exceeded my maximum angle of attack and I got into the buffet, all I do, obviously, is release the back pressure, decrease my angle of attack, and I'm flying again. But if I'm skidding the airplane, the skid will mask the buffet to a degree, and when that wing stalls, we go underneath. The corrective technique now is to step on the ball. As we've skidded the airplane, the ball goes out to the right. We step on the ball, opposite the direction of the rotation and the yaw. When we step on the right rudder, we swing the left wing forward, increasing the airflow, and we get the airplane flying again. When we skid the airplane and snap it out of a skid, it's very similar to the aerobatic maneuver called a snap roll.
To show the correlation between a snap roll and a skidded turn stall, I'm going to come in with right rudder, slide the ball way out, snap it, and around we go, back to level. And you can see a snap roll and a skidded turn stall have the same results. I'm going to skid the ball.
A snap roll is basically a spin in the horizontal direction. And of these two maneuvers, it's that skidding turn, which some of us tend to get into on that base to final turn. We're trying to horse that nose around to get it on the center line, to skid it into position. That's the classic stall spin departure on base to final turn. In any of these maneuvers, and in your effort to find your own DMMS, defined min maneuvering speed, you need to know at what speed your aircraft indicated airspeed actually stalls at. So go out there first and find that number. And here's where Wayne talks about you cannot stall a wing at 0 Gs.
Turns.
Okay, I'm at 2,900 feet, pulling power. I'm going to hold the altitude here and check the 1G level flight idle stall speed. There it is at 65.
Now that we've established that the aircraft will stall at 65 miles an hour under these conditions, I'd like to demonstrate a technique to be used if you came unhooked in the top of a high turn. Simply go to 0 G.
Stalled.
Decrease your angle of attack, 0 G. A wing will not stall at 0 G. If it's not working, if you're not asking anything of the wing, it will not stall.
Here we go, just to show that at 0 G, the airplane will not stall, bringing it up from 115. There we are at stall speed, 40, 30, over the top at 0 G, nose down, speed's back, G's back, I can pull out.
If you find yourself in trouble at the top of one of these high turns, resist that temptation to hold it in the buffet. Get that airplane to 0 G. Be patient. Gain as much speed as you can. Let gravity work for you. Use full throttle. The more speed you can acquire on the way down, the more G you have available to affect your pullout.
We were going to do a hammerhead type turn. We pulled up out of the field to the right, reversed back over to the left, dropped some flaps. If it unhooked right here, we don't want to come in with any more back pressure. Relax the back pressure, let gravity work for us, get some speed, and then we can affect the pullout.
The problem, of course, is the natural human reaction when you see that ground rushing up at you, especially on a departure stall close to the ground on takeoff. Your natural human reaction is going to be to pull back on the stick. Anybody that's been in this situation that survived it will tell you how strong that natural human reaction is to pull back on the stick, and that's just going to snap you right into the ground. Same thing if you drop a wing, the natural human reaction is going to be to try to pick it up with the aileron when you instead need to pick it up with the rudder. We are simply seeing too many of these completely preventable loss of control accidents. It can happen to any of us, experienced pilots, new pilots. We need to continuously train and train and train to avoid these sort of loss of control accidents. Thanks so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.